Happy Friday to us and happy Monday to you. Here we go today. Today we are beginning some work with decimals, and you will have noticed that Ms. Chamel has been working with decimals on the February calendar. We worked with decimals back in October. If you ever went shopping, you worked with decimals, and so decimals are not as scary as what some people think they are. But the first thing we're going to look at, it might help if you get to see what I'm looking at. Okay, we're going to be using a lot of this. I'm going to be writing here. We're going to look at this thing. What is this thing? Raise your hand. What is this thing? Yes, ma'am. It is a geoboard. We've worked with geoboards. We've seen geoboards, and we know that geoboards can show us 1/2. Geoboards can show us 1/4. Geoboards can show us 1/8. Okay, we know that stuff. Now, other than this being so much bigger than this, you don't have to tell me the obvious, I know that. How are these different? Yes, this one is bigger. I want you to look at these and tell me how come they're big, how they are different. How are they different? Okay, Jacob.
One of them is bigger but smaller, and the other one's smaller but bigger.
We already talked about that. Okay, so we already know that one of them is bigger and one of them is smaller. Somebody please close the door. What's something else that we can notice about them? Okay, Reese?
The smaller one has 100,
Okay, the smaller one has 100 squares. Okay, you two in the back, if Miss Sherry isn't in here, I want you to go to your seats.
She said she would be right back.
Oh, okay, then I want you to be looking this way because that's where the work is taking place. Okay? Eyeballs are this way. Thank you. Okay, so this one has how many squares again? 100. How do you know? Okay, because it's a what?
100.
It's a hundreds grid. Okay, I'm being so mean and I'm asking her this stuff. How many squares are on this one? Somebody besides Reese. Akaya. 16. So that's a lot of difference. There's a lot of difference between the number 16 and the number 100. Okay. So I'm going to get something else out now. I'm done with this actually. That's all the more I needed with that one. So we know that this one is, it can be 100. It can also be a whole unit.
Oh, I know why.
It could be, okay, so this is 100 grid, but this can be a whole unit. We also called it a mat. If we're thinking about it as money, how could I write 1 as money? This has been a while since you've talked about this. Anybody know? You can shake your heads if you, Millie's thinking she might try. Millie.
Like 1 as money?
Yeah, 1 is money. How would I write this?
Well, it depends what the 1 is. If you do like 1 with decimal 0, or you do like 1
Okay, so she's saying it depends on what this means, but if we're looking at this, she says it's a 1.00 because it's like we have 100 pennies. So we would call this 1. Okay.
That's 10.
That is a 10, but we're thinking about it as part of this. When I think of it as part of this, you see how this is on there? It's kind of hard for the people at home to see it. What do you think we call that thing? Yes. Okay, we've known it as a strip. You are absolutely correct on that. It has another name if we're talking about decimals. You've heard it, you just don't know that you've heard it. How do you pronounce that? Yes, sir. Tenth with a TH on the end. So make certain you get that TH sound on the end. Everybody do that. Say that with the TH. Okay, it's hard to tell when you have your masks on, which some of us forgot to put them back on after snack. Now I'm going to write this one as a fraction. How would I write it as a fraction? Yes. 1/10, 1 fraction bar 10. Okay, so I need a brave soul again. David, you can see this, right?
Yep.
Pronounce that.
1/10.
Okay, pronounce that.
10.
Okay, so this is a 10th,
1/10.
and this is a 10th.
1/10.
Did you notice that fractions and their words are the same for decimals? Because I could write down that we have 1/10, right? We have 1/10. How would I write this as a decimal? David?
$1.10.
Good try. How would I write that as a decimal? This one. David?
10 cents.
Okay, so how would that look if I'm writing numbers? Because Millie told me I had to write 1.00.
0.10.
0.10. Okay. Now we've got one of these little bitty guys.
Oh.
Remember, we called them a unit.
1 unit.
What do you suppose its name would be? Phoenix?
1.
Whatever you want to tell me. 1/100th. 100th. Now, is that how would am I writing it as a word? Am I writing it as a decimal? Am I writing it as a fraction? What do I do? Oh, okay, I've been told. Okay, so 100, we put the 100, and then we put the TH on the end. Please stop playing with my things. 100th. Everybody pronounce that? 100th. How do I write that as a fraction? Reese?
1 fraction bar 100.
Okay. How do I write this as a decimal? This is the tricky one. Danger, danger. This is the tricky one. Luke thinks he knows.
0.01.
Oh, I didn't trick him. Look at these two. What are the difference? Look at the numbers. What is the difference? What are you seeing? Oh, a lot of hands are up. People at home, are you noticing something too? Ethan, what do you notice?
1/10. 0.decimal point 1/10 is almost the same and is just scrambled around as 0.decimal point.
Yeah. So we see our numbers are scrambled around. Okay. Anybody else have more to add? Reese?
They're backwards.
Okay. So if I fix this one, are these two the same? No, they're not. And that's what we have to be aware of. We have to be aware of how many there are. How many of squares are in this one? How many squares are in this? People at the back tables. How many squares are in this strip? Emmett? 10. There are 10 little squares. How many squares do I have here, Emmett? 1. That's a lot of difference. I realize it's 10 cents versus 1 cent. That's not a lot of difference, but would you rather have 10 cents or would you rather have 1 cent? Okay. So I don't need to have any people saying, oh, they'd rather have something else entirely. We're not worried about that. So we are seeing how this works as units, and now I want to keep practicing this. I want to talk to you about this. So if I had something like this, and I need some more. Okay, I know this takes a long time. Okay, so we see this. What do we know about all of this? Talk at your tables. What do you know about this? So people at home, they're just talking. You think of out loud. Okay, I want you to listen to how I say this. Listen to how I say this. What is the value of this collection? It's been a while since you've heard the teachers use collection. I know they used to use those in your earlier grades. What is the value of this collection? Oh my goodness, look at all the hands in the air. Kiona. She says it's $2.43. Okay. I'm curious if anyone knows how to write that as a fraction. Who thinks they know how to write that as a fraction? Luke? Okay. Phoenix?
240 fraction below 100.
Okay, so we could write it as a fraction like this. Does this mean that we have 243 little squares?
Yes.
Okay, people at home, you have to pause a moment. It's popcorn day for us, so we have to get our popcorn. I'm going to take it to the back table. You'll hear some noise, such as life.
Wait, so we're going to do the popcorn thing right now? No. We're bringing the popcorn to the back.
Which is better to have two so thank you. Okay, we're back. Hope this gave you a chance. So when we have this fraction of 243 hundredths, I hope that you heard how, you guys can't hear it at home, I'm sorry. This way it is. But it's 243 hundredths, which means that this is a fraction greater than 1. How would I write this as a decimal without the dollar sign? I mean, we've got it written as money right now. How do I write it as a decimal? Okay, yes, sir? 2.43. Okay. So who thinks that they're brave enough to pronounce these? Oh, Reese says. Okay, Reese, pronounce this one.
243.
Pronounce this one.
$2.43.
That was a good try, but now you're calling it money. How would we pronounce this as a decimal? Good try, though, Reese. You were really close. Okay, so Grace, you're going to try this one. Well, how do you pronounce this one? Good try. How do we pronounce this one? Thank you. I mean, this is hard. You guys don't know this yet. That's okay. Okay, Brooklyn? Good try. David? Good try. Anna? 243 or 2 and 43. What? How would we do this? Is it coming back to you now? Because this is back from October now that we talked about this. Okay, Phoenix?
2 holes and 43.
Okay, yes, ma'am?
No.
Try it. Okay, watch how I do this. 2 and 43/100ths. Oh, yeah, now we're remembering. 2 and 43/100ths, which is 243/100ths. So if we're going to write this as a mixed number, we would write it like this. 2 and 43/100ths. 2 and 43/100ths. Do you hear how they are pronounced exactly the same even though they are written differently? They still mean the same thing. Okay, we're going to do one more practice on this before we're going into our workbook. Let's see. I think I can get some more stuff on there. But I need a new paper. You, sir, you need to sit there because you're not facing the right way. You need to move. Okay, got to get some more out here. Let's get another one of those. Let's take some of these away. Just because it takes so long, I don't want to get too many things out. So we have this many. Talk at your tables. What is the value of this collection? Talk at your tables. What is the value of this collection?
24.
Are you talking at your tables to figure out the value of the collection?
Oh yeah, 300. Dude, look at this.
Okay, some of our tables are talking, some not so much. Okay. So how many, who wants to come up and talk about it? A bunch of hands went down. Okay, Millie, come over here and talk about it. See what you know.
Well, there's the 3/100, so that's like 300 or like $3, and then there's the 2 tens, so that'd be 20 or 20 cents, and then the 4 units, which would be 4 or 4 cents. So then it'd be $3.24.
How many hundredths do I have?
3.
Hundredths?
4.
4 hundredths. Oh, that pink doesn't show up well. Gotta find a darker color. Okay, so Millie said right out, if we're thinking about it as money, it's $3.24. How would we pronounce that if we're not thinking about it as money and we're thinking about it as a whole number in a decimal? Who thinks they can try to pronounce that, Phoenix? How would you pronounce that?
$3.24.
How would you pronounce it as this?
3 and 2400.
3 and 24 hundredths. Okay. How would I make this into a fraction? Yes, ma'am.
3 and
Okay. Yes, sir.
324 fraction of 100.
We could also do it as an improper fraction or a fraction greater than 1. Okay, people at home, we're going to be working with our base 10 pieces. I believe that you had those sent to you once before. I hope that you still have them. If you haven't, we'll have to go back and look for that file. It's going to take us a bit to get into our next set of directions, so I'm going to pause you, and we'll talk to you in a little bit.
Bye.
Okay, we've passed out our pieces in case we want to use the pieces at the bottom. So what we're going to do is, you don't need to listen to us discuss this, but we're going to figure out our decimal, we're going to figure out our fractions, and then we're going to use our base 10 pieces if we need to try to make these decimals and to figure out what they are as a fraction. Then we're going to go ahead and try to figure out where our decimals would be on our number line. Notice the number line goes from 0 to 3. Then I want you to look at this mat. It's just like when we were playing with this, but instead of having all of this, it has 1, 2, 3, 4 of the pieces shaded in. Those are tenths. What's the name of, so how many tenths are shaded? Then it asks you how many hundredths are shaded and how do you know? This is very important to understand. Number 4 is a very important question to work on. Then we get down to number 5, and we have more practice on the back. What I really want you to focus on, if time is short for you, is to do number 3. We were talking about how money, decimals, and fractions look. Okay, so we will talk to you after we get our work done.
Bye. Oh, yeah.
Hello, we're back. Okay, we're going to go through this page. Looking at the pictures we have some groups of 10 and we have some single units. Count with me to count our tenths. Did you hear the word I used? Because I'm talking about tenths. And then the units. Actually, they're called hundredths. These long strips are the tenths. These little tiny pieces are the hundredths. I want you to think about this. If you would think of the word cent, like in pennies, cent means 100. So that's where we get these words from. So if we're going to count our tenths, let's count them together. 1 tenth, 2 tenths, 3 tenths, 4 tenths, 5 tenths, 6 tenths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so we have 6 tenths. Now let's count our hundredths. 1 hundredth, 2 hundredths, 3 hundredths, 4 hundredths, 5 hundredths, 6 hundredths, 7 hundredths. We have 6 tenths, 7 hundredths. If we think about this, we need to add those together. 6 tenths would equal 60. 7 hundredths equals 7. What is 60 plus 7?
67.
Yes, Jacob?
67.
67. How would I write that as a decimal? Because we're not talking about whole units. We're talking about parts of a unit. Yes.
0.67.
0 and 67 100ths. A minute. We are really used to saying point or dot. Decimal's better than point or dot, but we're going to try to learn how to pronounce them correctly. Since we're working with a whole unit being 100 little parts, how would I change 67 hundredths into a fraction? Please raise your hand. Yes, ma'am. 67 fraction bar 100. Okay, we've got tenths and hundredths again. How many tenths do we have? Show me with fingers. Okay. How many hundredths do we have? Show me with fingers. Okay. How do I combine my tenths and my hundredths? My tenths equals how much? If we're thinking of pennies. I heard somebody say that. How do I write this now? Raise your hand. Will?
0 and 12 hundredths.
0 and 12 hundredths. We say hundredths because we have something in the hundredths column. How do I write this as a fraction? Gabby? 12 100ths. Okay. Did you notice now we have whole units and parts of units? We know that this is a 100. We know this is a 100, which means that we have a whole unit of 1, and we have another whole unit of 1. And then how many tenths do we have? Count with me. 1/10, 3/10, 4/10, 5/10, 6/10, 7/10, 8/10, 9/10. We have 9, so there's 9 of them. How many hundredths do we have? Jacob?
5.
5. How do I write this as a decimal? Emmett?
Got 200.
Okay, so this is a 200, a 2. And here's our decimal. And what is the rest of it?
95.
Okay, how would we pronounce that? That's the hard part. How would we pronounce it? Are you brave, Emmett? Okay, try it. 2 and 95 100ths. How would I write that as a mixed number, Kiona?
295
That does work. 295 100ths. How do I write it as a mixed number? Anna, you had your hand up. Would you tell me how to do it as a mixed number? You've got it in your book. I saw it. Okay, so what part? Now, what's my fraction? You got to say it loud enough so I can hear you. I think that's what she said. Okay. So 2 different ways to do our fraction. Okay, we noticed here we have a 100 again. I hope that you guys see that immediately. So what about this part? This one's a little bit trickier. How do I write this one as a decimal? Grace?
1 and 9.
Okay, so how would you pronounce it then without having to tell me to write the 0? Grace, you gonna try? Okay, 1 and 900ths. How do I write this? It can be both a fraction and a mixed number. Okay, Emmett?
900.
Okay, well, we want to have our 1. Yep, and we have to have our 9 and our 100. How do we pronounce that? David?
1 and 9 100.
1 and 900ths. Okay, 1 and 9 100ths. Okay. Notice if I pronounce this one, it's 1 and 900ths, and this one is 1 and 900ths. They're pronounced the same. Okay, at the back table, we had been busy working on these. Some of you drew out things. We had discovered that these are working like these at the top, and so that's how we used our resources. Who can tell me what the fraction would be for this one? Gabby? 75, fraction bar 100. How do I pronounce that? Who's brave? Reese? 75 100ths. How do I do letter B? Jacob?
25 900.
Okay, how can you pronounce that?
2500.
25 100ths or 25 hundredths. Now we've got a decimal that's greater than 1. Okay. Oh my goodness, Gabby, you're on a roll. Gabby, can you tell me about it?
199.
Okay, 9 or 1. And then she wrote 99 100ths. Okay, and the last one, Millie? Okay, can somebody get the door? The third grade's being a little loud. Thank you, Trevor. Okay, so we can write it as 203 over 100. How can we write that as a mixed number? Anna? Okay. And this one can also be written, oops, if you write it correctly, can also be written like this as well. Okay, that's all the time we have. We will have to go through the other pages on Monday. For you guys, that's Tuesday. And we are going to get started with science. So everybody have a great day. Bye.